very wet.
So there's a lot of things that iCarly 2021 does really cringy and wrong, but there's also a lot of stuff that iCarly 2021 does right.
I want to kind of break down the episode almost beat by beat and talk about what they did exceptionally and what they just failed on. What's up, guys? This is Johnny 2000 back at it again with some more 2000s nostalgia. Today we're focusing more on some teen TV with the reboot of iCarly. Yeah, iCarly was an iconic show in the 2010s and the 2000s. With 6 seasons and some of the highest ratings, it was unforgettable. It was funny, the world felt very fleshed out, and the characters' dialogue and humor were just so relatable. I personally learned a lot from the internet culture watching this show, and I can't wait to compare and contrast it to kind of how the show takes the 2020s. Okay, so let's get started.
So Carly returns home to the classic apartment,
Greeted by the famous Spencer Shea, who is naked. Already a fun start.
We automatically see the 2 most familiar characters that we did in iCarly. My only problem with this beginning is that the jokes don't really come in a punchline, or they don't really end with being funny. It more is just, oh, I'm quirky, and then there's a little bit of a laugh track, but even the laugh track isn't buying it.
Oh, you gave it to her without me?
Yeah, and her reaction was priceless.
Haha, her reaction was priceless. That's funny because it's just a fact.
It's really cute how Spencer is still an artist and got her a giant and for her birthday. But it's also like, you're an artist, that's it. This is like something you can buy. I feel like Spencer would have done something a little bit better than this.
Carly kind of unnaturally shoves her backstory down our throats.
After years of doing iCarly with Sam, and then hosting Italian QVC, and then my brief stint in college radio, I'm finally gonna be back online where I belong.
I don't want to have a negative opinion about her character, but it is kind of annoying to hear you list out your accomplishments.
The way they show Freddie still being good at videography, him putting down the camera.
After Spencer designed this sculpture, I outfitted it with a sneaky little spot for a camera.
And he didn't even hit record.
I feel like we think she's about to be proposed to, but it turns out to be she just wants to be back on the internet, which, why would you want to do that, Carly? The internet is evil! But I mean, I guess it is kind of a reflection of how the show ended up.
It just feels like this whole first scene, all the jokes and punchlines are based on things that already exist as opposed to real life moments.
They talk about how they're going to record this live proposal and it's going to be this amazing thing. Meanwhile, Beau is planning to break up with her, which is a really funny sitcom trope.
I feel like what makes sitcoms really good is when you talk about mundane, simple things, and learning about who people are through character is what makes the show interesting. And it would be one thing if they didn't lean into the character tropes they already created and started showing us how they're different. Instead, they're kind of showing us how they're the same just to make people feel comfortable. They keep bringing back this joke of them posing, and it's really not worth coming back.
We thought you could stand on either side of it and be all...
Freddie and Spencer hide. Miranda's live streaming Beau without his consent, and he ends up breaking up with her. Then it's interesting because we get to see Carly going through a breakup, which I feel like we didn't really see in the original series, so it's already kind of interesting.
I think people will see that it was a mutual thing.
Oh, the theme song is already so different. I can't get over it. It's a lot more digitized, very 21st century in a good way, though. I feel like this does a really good job at improving upon the original, which will not be said often after this. And it seems very dependent on the iPhone, which is kind of against the Pearphone that they started in the first series. Then they go back to the same apartment they had from the first show. Oh my gosh, this is already depressing. And Carly has a new friend. Her name's Harper, which isn't that different from Wizards of Waverly Place. Carly makes a reference to Law and Order, which feels a little out of character. She definitely plays the tougher of the two, which was kind of what Sam was. Harper seems a little bit more motivational and positive. Although when she leans into her more rebellious side, I feel like it puts her in the category of Sam again and doesn't make her unique. The tonal shift from kid show to adult show is definitely awkward. Yeah, all the adult jokes in this show seem to be more one-offs and just an excuse to get the character to talk, as opposed to putting them in the adult scenarios and seeing how they react as their characters, which would be a lot more sensible. They talk about going to Spencer's celebration for his art. Carly doesn't want to go to the party because she's too depressed, and Harper convinces her to. Then we go back to the Shays' apartment, and Spencer is rich. He talks about just being a regular guy, which also is spoon-feeding the characters as opposed to letting us learn about them over time. Freddie reveals that he's moved back in with his mother and completely regressed since we last saw him and has a daughter? I looked this up when I even saw this show being spoiled online, and apparently it's legal for you to adopt somebody as long as they're 10 years younger than you. Weird.
Pursued my dreams, married for love, 2 divorces, and a failed startup later, I'm back living with my mom.
I feel like all the stuff he listed is a lot more interesting than where he currently is now, which takes away from the plot. Like, this is like the definition of show don't tell. They are telling everything in this. I would have loved to see Freddie go through a midlife crisis and suffer a little bit more. Freddie's daughter is kind of angsty toward Carly, which is my favorite dynamic so far. Or, of course, somebody at that age knows the internet a little bit better than somebody at our age. And I love seeing Carly go up against her like that. Millicent is the name of Freddie's daughter. She plays the more mischievous Gen Alpha role. And her character is essentially Megan from Drake and Josh. But I kind of feel bad for her because it seems like she could have lived a normal childhood life, but instead she's dragged into all these adults' drama. Spencer's bothered because Harper doesn't like his new sculpture, but I don't know how they don't already have a pre-existing relationship with Carly being her new best friend. Carly's about to leave when she runs into Luke from Camp Lakehorn and is immediately interested in him, so she drops her depression. Okay, so she's not willing to drop her sadness for her brother, but she is definitely, if there's an attractive guy. Don't like this Carly yet. They make a reference to Carly's mom, which is kind of an inside joke because she was barely mentioned in the original series, and of course they have to poke fun at it now because they don't have other things to joke about yet. Spencer doesn't know anybody at his own party, which I think is actually kind of sad. I feel like it would be a lot funnier if we did kind of know a lot of people here. Especially I feel like it's good to tell stories about fostering communities as opposed to just celebrating that these guys are isolated as they were in the first season. And Freddie's mom makes an appearance, which is super exciting because she is one of the funniest characters, and she doesn't look any different, which is concerning. She has no shame in talking to Freddie and his daughter in front of the entire party, which is really embarrassing, ruining another one of Freddie's love endeavors. Carly and Luke go back to the apartment to watch Law & Order, which is... I wish they just put in a show that could have been in the iCarly universe. Like, it could have been anything. It could have been Dingo. It could have been something from the first series. It doesn't have to be an already existing show. Spencer checks on his sister at her apartment in this really awkward Hawaiian shirt that I just can't get over. And Carly's already in a better mood. Then they do the common sitcom thing where, in order to have a conversation, they all just enter the apartment and are all suddenly mingling. There's no actual reason to prompt this conversation, and there was no reason for Freddie and his daughter to enter. I mean, I'm sure they all gather around to do this every so often, but it just doesn't feel like everybody gets along to that point, at least the way they've treated each other so far. Not a lot of camaraderie so far in this show. It's a little bit more cynical than it is anything else. Carly is very focused on proving that she won the breakup, which is definitely a really funny main A-plot for the pilot. Bo shows up for lunch at the party, but he doesn't know Carly's friends well enough, which is crazy because apparently they were dating for 4 years. Bo tells Carly that he's seeing someone, which has been less than 24 hours, so Carly, I don't know what to tell you. And I don't know how Bo is comfortable sharing that information in front of all the main cast being in the kitchen. I mean, I would be scared they would beat me up. Carly acts like she doesn't have an issue with it. And I gotta admit that one of the positives is Carly standalone is really funny. Miranda Cosgrove is so good at this role that I think she is making it work, but if it weren't for the dialogue, I think things would be a lot more impactful. So it's not Miranda Cosgrove's fault so far. Although she's a producer and probably hired the writers, so I don't know. So then Carly's on a date with the guy Luke, and we kind of are aware that her intentions are just to get over a breakup, so it doesn't feel so great. I wish the intentions were that she really wants to prove that she could still be independent and that she could still find love, as opposed to a negative reason like revenge. Instead of developing their own style, I feel like they kind of lean into the tongue-in-cheek nature of the original series, but only in the way they deliver the jokes, not necessarily the way the jokes are written. Like, they'll do something quirky and different, and that's what they did in the original show, but it would be followed by a real moment and or the characters' genuine intentions to accomplish a goal. While here, I feel like we're just putting the characters in different scenarios. And I mean, there's a goal, it just feels shallow. After 5 scenes, we get back to the B-plot, which really doesn't have a lot to do with the A-plot, which I wish it did, because pilots should be like that. I mean, I know the regular iCarly series had completely separate A and B and C plots, but if you're a pilot, even the original pilot of iCarly didn't break off into further stories this quickly. I would love to see how this has to do with everything Carly's going through. Harper, for some reason, is Spencer's guidance and all this. And I really feel like this should have been romantic. I mean, I get that it's supposed to be just friends, but if it were romantic and he actually cared about what she felt on a deeper level, that would be a lot more impactful to me. Carly and Freddie share a moment together where they're talking about everything that happened. They talk about that Sam went off with a biker gang, which is cool because obviously Sam got her spin-off show and now it's these guys' turn. They already hint at Carly and Freddie forming a relationship pretty early on, and when I saw this for the first time, I definitely thought that's what they were going for. I mean, why would you put a character and then an unfamiliar character together? Like, it just makes too much sense. Then we see the main characters go back up to the old iCarly studio, and it's kind of disturbing because there's a bunch of dolls hanging around. And this one's kind of funny too. I mean, it's very situational humor, so we're sort of leading out of the characters again, but I think these jokes are really good. Carly is inspired and wants to bring the show back, which is kind of a reflection on why they brought back this entire show. And the biggest waste of time is actually going through some of the old props. Like, if you guys really want to separate yourselves from the old show and be more adult and be more, I mean, anything, then we should probably let a little bit of this go or have a comedic spin on it so it's not weird. Freddie records iCarly in a style that he used to, but it doesn't make any sense because it's just an iPhone camera, so why would he have to hold it up with such firmness? Spencer comes back as the baby Spencer, and they do kind of the exact same bit they did in the original show, which I wish they kind of made it a little bit more. I think they could have taken it to another level, especially being 10 years since this original bit. Like, I'm sure there's something funnier. I'm not sure if the fan service was really bogging down this production or that the writers felt the need to keep the old show constantly reminded for the viewers, but this also feels like this could have been just multiple different clips just to revive iCarly. In the end, they have a cheers, and Harper finally is impressed with Spencer's invention when it gets set on fire. My favorite trope from iCarly is that Spencer accidentally sets a lot of things on fire, and it's so funny. Overall, this is kind of disappointing. I feel like at the time it was way more impressive than I thought it was, but looking back, especially after seeing The Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, it just feels like it's not trying too hard to leave its original purpose or it's trying to evolve into only an adult comedy. But if you watch adult sitcoms, I think they're a lot more clever than that, and they're focused on revealing the characters, and there's a large chunk of time that we didn't get to see these characters, and I wish instead of just spelling out where they were in like a resume type format, we could just slowly learn about details of their missing timeline now. The original show of iCarly actually did that pretty well. So did this pilot live up to it? I mean, at first when I saw it, I thought it definitely did, and it's captured the magic of the original, but looking back, having only been 3 years, it feels dated already somehow. Just the idea of constantly rehashing these old properties to try to fit into the 21st century. See, with Wizards doing it so well, I definitely think it's possible, but it feels like these channels need to know when it is not possible. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Johnny2000. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.